Ghassan Salami was born in the Lebanon 40 years ago, but has been living in Paris since 1985. He is a distinguished academic and writer, and is now professor of politics at the Sorbonne. Arab reaction to the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait last month has been varied. Ghassan Salami was surprised by his own response. He now assesses the reaction of the Arab world.
So what was my reaction to the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait? My first reaction was somehow trivial. Since August the 2nd, I could not write a single word in Arabic. It is not that I don't try, it is that I fail. Why? Because I know whatever I write is going to hurt my friends. My numerous Kuwaiti friends would have sensed the reluctance to condemn Iraq in the unambiguous terms they would now accept. But other friends, scattered across the Arab world, from Basra to Casablanca, would have found untimely my repulsion to Saddam's methods and to authoritarianism in general. Both groups would have found my writings ambiguous, distant, complacent. So I don't write, and my silence is considered ambiguous, distant, or worse, indifferent. Then what do you think, you ask? Well, like so many of my friends, I utterly hated the previous status quo in the Arab world. Hence, my instinctive positive reaction to anything that changes it, just like those who went into the streets. What did they hate? Basically, the unbearable contrast between your situation and theirs. In the past few years, the West was enjoying a dynamic economic recovery, the end of the Cold War, and the triumph of democratic ideals. You won the Cold War. You won the economic competition. You won in the ideological field. Meanwhile, the Arab world was going through an oil hangover, an unprecedented economic recession, a frightening demographic explosion, a $300 billion foreign debt, the strengthening of authoritarian regimes, a deepening gap between rich and poor within each Arab country, and more importantly, between the Gulf area and the rest. Some of us Arab intellectuals were just fleeing to your countries. Others were taking 3 or 4 jobs to make up for their meager pay, and the rest were sliding into the passive nostalgia readily offered by the so-called religious revival groups. Nationally, you were confident enough to relinquish some of your sovereignty to the EEC. We were trying to let the Palestinians have a nation of their own, to re-establish the semblance of a state in Lebanon, in the Sudan, or in Yemen, to keep some level of Arab solidarity. And we were unsuccessful in all these endeavors. So yes, the Iraqi invasion of Kuwait was instinctively viewed as a stone in the marshy waters of Arab politics, an act of will in times of lethargy by those Algerians and Tunisians, Palestinians and Jordanians who spontaneously went into the streets. They did not admire Saddam Hussein. They were certainly not ready to accept his kind of dictatorial rule. They did not loathe those peaceful Kuwaitis, nor did they suddenly discover a savior, a Bismarck, a Nasser. No, they basically hated the status quo. They were longing for a change, any change, in the prevailing situations, where kings and presidents seemed to rule forever, where Palestinian concessions were met with the most expansionist government in Israel's history, where Lebanon was settled, where Arabs were sliding into unemployment. I expect your next question is, are you now better off? No, we are not. The fear of a precedent set in Kuwait, the fear of the uninterrupted bloodshed if all these borders, be they artificial, are revised by the use of force, the tragedy of millions of migrant workers returning without their savings into unemployment and petty banditism, the complete disarray in Arab ranks, the fear of American tortuous designs coupled with the frightening firepower, the fear of an America completely aligned on Israel. All this present fear is now mixed with yesterday's hatred of the old status quo. Some of us are relieved with the chaotic change now taking place. Some others are obsessed with the cost and with the likelihood of an even worse outcome. The first group is complacent with Saddam. The second is cursing him. In all this, the West is deftly avoiding a mention of its huge responsibility. You devised the borders in the colonial era. You over-equipped your friends with lethal technology. You exported everything but your human rights. You strengthened the Gulf medieval rulers' hand when you needed them against Nasser, and Saddam's hand when he was useful against Iran. You never cared about societies, and you now come back with the UN instrument after decades during which America has vetoed or destroyed all UN resolutions on the Middle East. Recognize your role in that disorder before giving lessons on law and order. As far as we are concerned, the very first remedy to our predicament is in the rapid replacement of those who spoke for us and who brought us into this impasse on both sides of the present divide in the Arab world. For the rest, Bush could topple Saddam or the other way around. Kuwait might reappear as an independent entity or not. If this crisis leads to a change in this regional mixture of impotence and adventurism, corruption and greed, wealthy leaders and impoverished societies, then whatever happens in the Gulf becomes marginal, at least for us. Let all these false heroes make history. We would be content with the side effects.